History of New Zealand Drum and Bass series, celebrating over 25 years of drum and bass in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along. It is the History of New Zealand Drum and Bass podcasts, and joining me right now, one of the legends of New Zealand drum and bass and New Zealand music in general, Tiki Taane. How you going, brother?
Kia ora, brother. Yes, very good, man.
Weird times, eh?
Yeah, weird times, but I think I'm very grateful because I've got a pretty badass studio off the side of my house. So for me, nothing really changes. I'm still in my studio every day. It just means I've got, the missus and the kids annoying me constantly at home. Nah, they're all good. They're all good.
Well, it's I suppose we start this podcast by acknowledging the passing of, honestly, one of the foundations of roots dub music culture. Anything that has a bass line, really.
Yeah.
Lee Scratch Perry passed away overnight at the age of, I think it was 82 years old, and man, what a life to have lived, right?
Yeah, legend, eh?
I saw your post this morning that was about had you and Lee Scratch Perry, and you actually got to meet the guy, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a trippy situation. My sister and I met up with him while he was here in Aotearoa in the early 2000s. He was here doing some shows, and I was helping out with production and stuff like that. So it was really cool to meet him. It was a pretty interesting one. When he saw me, it was like he saw a ghost. It was the most bizarre thing. And I was standing there going, holy shit, he's like looking right through me. And my sister's going, whoa, what's going on here? And then he said mumbled a few things to me. And then that was like, oh, that was weird. And then, he's got this incredible energy about him, and then later on it was all cool. But that first initial meeting was like, when you normally meet somebody, you're like, "Hey man, how's it going? It was the complete opposite of that. It was just like, and he was like, he had a spliff, he had an incense, and he had these bells, and he was ringing these bells, and he came over to me and just like gave me this really deep look. He just looked right through me. It was quite special. It was
powerful.
Yeah, it was powerful. It was trippy. It was awkward at the same time, but really choice at the same time as well, because he definitely we connected in this bizarre spiritual realm. It was very odd, but very cool at the same time. Yeah, and then
what was he doing out here?
He was just doing some shows. I think it was about 2002 or something like that. And, I was, by then, Salmonella Dub was in full flight, and word got around that he was coming to Aotearoa, and I was like, I'd absolutely love to meet the guy, help out with production. And so, so he was like, yep, he put his management, I think it was his wife, she's like Swedish or something. She's pretty cool, but they were like, come on down to Acme Sound. Remember where Acme Sound used to be?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, in the old days, with the Martin sound system and all that. It was Rex,
man.
Rex and Dave. Rest in peace, Dave.
Rest in peace, Dave, man.
Yeah.
Legend.
So I was kicking around with those guys, and they were like, come on down and help out. So I helped out setting some stuff up, and hung out at the rehearsals, and then checked it out at the gig as well. And it was my first real experience of seeing just a proper Jamaican dub band, like deep, just so good, bro. Like the learning curve for me of just watching and hanging out with these guys was huge. So it's a really sad passing of a legend. He had so much to do with what we do now as producers.
What we do now, yeah, exactly, man. And pioneered and championed a lot of those production techniques that we've all been using.
Absolutely.
Dub, delay, everything, bro.
Everything.
If you're a dub reggae, dubstep producer, drum and bass producer, it's leaked into all styles of music,
Yeah. Yeah, all styles of music across the board, bro. Like even right now, all the stuff you hear, it's on the radio, the pop stuff, it's all got those tricks that were pioneered by Lee Scratch and King Tubby and those guys in the early 70s. And it's just such a massive loss, but like, wow, what an incredible life he had, right up until what'd you say, he was 82, 85, I can't remember. Yeah, so that for me, and also, bro, his style was fucking off the chain.
I know, he was like, the guy was fruity, right?
So good. I've stolen many of his looks, man. Like a lot of his hats and his weird tops and his fruity shit. I mean, you know me, bro. I wear some weird shit, and so that's a lot of it's inspired by Lee Scratch Perry as well. Because I just see him and go, man, that guy is amazing, and I wish I could be like that. I want to be like that when I'm 82, bro. I think we all.
You know what? I actually think you will be like that when you're 82. I wouldn't put that past you. Well, man, like we're kind of talking about your experience around 2002 with Lee Scratch Perry. Let's take it back a few years, bro. How, where did your musical, I mean, obviously this is well documented. You started in Christchurch, musically, grunge bands, brass pedek, and all that sort of shit. But when did you really start cottoning on to the sound of jungle and drum and bass?
It would have been, I was around 16, 17, probably 16. I'd started doing a sound course called Namata Waka in Christchurch, and it was like the first ever sound course thingy. And I was a fucking heavy metal punk rocker kid.
Yeah, we both were.
Yeah. Well, fuck. When I first met you had a mohawk and a kilt.
Yes, and a skateboard, Doc Martin boots, 12s up.
Yeah, we're 15. We're 15, man. And they were like, "Who the fuck is this cool cat?" And we just, that was crazy, bro.
I know.
So yeah, man. So I was just like into the heaviest shit. Whether it's punk, metal, or rap, I was into the heaviest shit. The shit that would just fucking freak people out. That was my thing, I was into that. And so I wanted to really learn how to record it and how to become a sound engineer and all that stuff. So I joined up this course called Namata Waka. And that's where I met a couple of guys. One of them was Pylons. He was there. And I think, this is probably like 93 or 4 or something like that. And I wasn't really aware of the dance scene at all or anything like that. I was just purely punk, metal, hip hop. And so when I started mingling with these guys and hanging out, often I'll get taken to some raves up in the hills, some weird raves up in Port Hills.
Sign of the Bellbird.
Oh, man.
Sign of the Takahi, Sign of the Bellbird. Those parties were freaking epic, bruv.
They were dope. And so that was my first real experience of, okay, there's something's going on here. At first, I didn't really like it, to be honest. I was like, what the fuck is this shit music, man? It was like trancey shit. It was just like,
That's kind of what I said in my podcast as well. Like just the introduction. Christchurch had a very different scene to everywhere else because you wouldn't go to a party and it would be just one sound. It'd be a whole mix of different sounds. You get the trance Nazis, you get the rave bunnies, you have the drum and bass guys. You know what I mean? There's a crazy mix of sound.
Crazy mix of sounds. And then because I knew Pylons, he was sort of mucking around DJing. I think there's a few guys, but because he was becoming a mate of mine, he started tapping into it and playing some stuff. But it wasn't really until I think around the time of Scientific, Point Blank, when you came back down.
Yeah.
I can't even remember when that was, bro. What was that?
I think we're looking at 98 around then because I'd been back and forward between Christchurch and Auckland myself, sort of trying to start off Point Blank in Auckland, but
doing shit,
get out of there. The graffiti scene was after me. I was getting chased out of town, so I came back down to Christchurch, and
it's getting rugged, huh?
It was getting rugged, bro. Well, Moses' brother took my 2 front teeth out, and that was it. I was like, God.
Oh my God.
Graffiti wars.
Shit,
it was
man.
mad times.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you came down, that was when I was fully I had the bug. But before, actually thinking about it now, it was actually The Gathering, 95, 96, I can't remember. The first Gathering. And so I'd linked up with Salman Al-Dub, who had already been around for 3 years. They started in 1993. And so they were mucking around on, mixing dub with all sorts of weird shit. And they were experimenting with sort of jungle drum and bass, but in their own quirky kind of style. And they got hold of me, Andrew Pemman got hold of me and was like, can you come mix my band? Because I was mixing every band in Christchurch at that time. By the time
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, man. By the time I was 19, I was working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And or even a Wednesday. On a Wednesday, it would be a country and western band. I was doing some fucking country and western band mixing them. And then Thursday was like
Open mic night at Blues Bar.
oh man, yeah, bro. And then Thursday was like Dole Day, so it was all the punk bands and all the real fucking gritty punk bands. And then Friday was kind of more covers bands. Saturday was like sometimes international acts that would come through. I'd mix them. And then Sunday was sort of chilled out stuff at the Ducks or whatever. So I was super busy mixing all these live bands and hip hop and all sorts of stuff. So Sal Dub got hold of me. Andrew Pearman was like, "Can you come? You know, he heard some things through the scene. They're like, this young cat, he's doing some good stuff." And so I went and mixed Salmon a la Dub. I think that was 1996 when I first mixed them, and it blew my mind, man. I actually just was like, this is some cool shit, because they were starting to really experiment with kind of this jungle drum and bass thing, but doing it live. And I was, you know, I was pretty uneducated around the whole dub experience. And so Andrew and Sal Dub just basically injected me, mainlined me with all the shit, man, like African Head Charge.
Threw you in the deep end.
Yeah, man, they just mainlined me, and I just took to it like, holy fuck, I love this shit. And not only was it great music and a great scene that was going on, it was just heaps of chicks. You know what I mean? Like it was, it was smoky and really beautiful, free wahine, just getting loose and dancing. Compared to
there was
what
very
it was,
much that hippie element going on down in Christchurch.
absolutely, bro. It was beautiful. Compared to the grunge
scene.
Yeah, the sweaty dudes, man. Sweaty sausage fish dudes, and so for me, it was just a complete change of just a scene in a huge way, and it really affected me, you know. And then you got the drug culture that came with that, and then just the progressiveness of the music, and then it was just jungle and drum and bass, and just sort of really going, what the fuck is this? You know, I remember just going, this is some futuristic shit, man. This is something that I've never heard before, never felt before. It had everything that I loved about music. It had the intensity. It had the big riffs, you know, big riffs. It had big drums.
Rocky as fuck.
Oh, man. And no vocals. That's the crazy thing, man. Like, fuck, we'd go to these raves and dance for 6 hours and hear no vocals apart from an MC, you know?
Yeah, and even then, an MC was kind of optional back in those days, right? You know? It was like, jungle came from a jungle background with, like, you know, ragga jungle, so you had a lot of MCs. I remember, like, MC OJ and Slave first jumping on board at those early ones in Auckland, and they were, like, taken, you know, my name was, like, to them, I was known as Jungle J, because it was, like, I played jungle tunes and drum and bass. It was all the same thing to them, you know what I mean? But once we sort of got around to that 98 era, where sort of like Ed Rush and Optical started coming through, Fierce and Nico started coming through, then Dillinger's sound sort of really took over and all that sort of shit. It was like, holy shit. And it's like, geez, this sound is just going from level to level, and it was on a weekly basis.
Bro, it was so powerful, so moving. And the community and the culture that came from that as well. So
do you reckon a part of the reason why we had such community and such a rich culture back in those days is because of the echoings of cats like Lee Scratch Perry, and like the fact that also we're an island nation, drum and bass originally, it's sort of its roots are in Jamaican dub culture and dub plate culture and all that. So I wonder if that's like
I think so, bro. Absolutely. I often talk about that as like, why is Aotearoa so big on reggae as well, you know, and why are we loving drum and bass, and it's that, you know, we're just like the Polynesian Māori community. And we're on this island, and it's like the Jamaicans heading over to the UK and mixing it up with the punk scene and everything. So we kind of had that style over here in Aotearoa. It was incubating, you know. And what I used to love, like, you know, even going to the gathering, the first gatherings was when I was just blown away. You had your drum and bass zone, you had your trance, you had your house, you had all these different kind of genres and zones, and that's when I really kind of went, fuck, this is something really, really special going on here in New Zealand anyway, you know. So, and then fast forward a little bit, a couple more years to where you came down and the scene was bubbling, man.
Yeah.
It was bubbling, and there's this cool vibe, and the culture was dope. And what I loved about it was just the fact that, you know, you got your hip hop kids that could get into it, you got your punk kids who get into it, and then you got your drum and bass kids. And so there's this really kind of gathering of these misfits and these outcasts would come together.
That's what I loved about those Thursday nights at Point Blank, and the Sundays to start off with were like kind of quiet, and it was just like you say, it was bubbling away. But then once it sort of really kicked in, and we hit those Thursday nights, and Colombo Street, there'd be a line around the corner, and Scribe would turn up and jump on the mic and do some raps over drum and bass, and just mad shit like that going down. It's like historic Christchurch moments, you know what I mean? But like then Mo and Pylons were doing the scientific stuff as well, and it was like there's this whole other scene within a scene. It was like wasn't really, it didn't feel like competition or anything like that. There was enough room for everyone to do parties, and it was kind of cool as well. You know, we all knew each other. I'd played for Mo in the past, Mo had played for me in the past, and Mo obviously now, I mean, he's probably one of the greats of New Zealand drum and bass, if you ask me. He's over there, you know, Need for Mirrors.
Yeah,
making some of the most amazing music, putting on great parties in London. Fucking his, like, the respect of the world, you know what I mean? It's fucking awesome to see a guy like that, and no one really speaks about his involvement in New Zealand drum and bass.
That's true, you know. I mean, he was one of the, you know, he should go down as being one of the guys that influenced a culture, drum and bass culture here in Aotearoa, you know, and he went over to the UK, and he's always been on the tip, man, like the tip of some really cool shit. So totally. It's cool to see him killing it. And, you know, that's you know, when I started to become good friends, you know, of Pylons, and then met, you know, of course, Tali, who's become one of my bestest friends of all time. You know, we had a great connection, me and Tali, and then she started jumping on the mic, and that was dope too, you know. And
I remember the first night that Tali jumped on the mic over an international, I think it was, and it was Fresh in Vegas out at New Beginnings.
I wasn't at that one, man. I was probably on the road with Sal Dub somewhere else.
Right.
That's the other thing. I used to miss a lot of parties because I was off doing Sal Dub stuff. But that was the first time you were there. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, that was fucking awesome. Fresh was like, can she MC? And I was like, mate, go for it. She's awesome. Chuck her on. Boom, away she went. Boom, that was it. It was recorded as well. I think that tape still. Remember, like Christchurch had this history. It didn't, I don't know how, but people would record the sets, and these sets would end up floating around on tape for ages and become the Bible, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know whether it was like Bruce or someone by the desk had a mini disc recorder or some shit like that, but like Christchurch has a really rich history of recording and bootlegging DJ sets of dub plates that should not have been recorded, you know?
Yeah, I'd say it was Bruce. He was always up to sneaky things.
Totally.
The amount of times I got banned from the ministry,
oh my God,
because of Bruce, because I was just a smart little shit, you know. I was a bit of a shit, but at the same time, I'd rack him up, and I'd get in there and I'd fiddle with the sound system, and he would hate that. He would hate it when I'd.
For those people that don't know that are listening out there, the ministry was the seminal nightclub of Christchurch. It was on Litchfield Street prior to the I think it was still operating right up until the Christchurch earthquake 2011, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
it was.
This was like at one stage this place was classed as the mecca of the southern hemisphere as far as drum and bass goes. All the UK DJs wanted to play at the ministry. There was like folklorish kind of mystique around its sound system because it had first been EQ'd by you for a lot of the gigs, and then Dillinger came through town and EQ'd that sound system, and fuck me days, we really got to feel what drum and bass like was after that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this nightclub was seminal. It was where everyone came to play, basically. Everyone that was coming through New Zealand would play at the ministry, and some nights it was just a line from one end of Litchfield Street to another, right? It was freaking awesome. Yeah.
It was huge, man. And it was huge, and like just even the culture, you know, like you'd have, you know, back in those days, the scene like started to really develop, and you'd have, I just remember the vibe would be a flyer would go out and it'll be like, you know, I think one of the first ones I saw at the ministry could have been Doc Scott. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
And then there was Groove Rider. I remember being there. And one of the what was it? I didn't make it a Trace when Trace came.
DJ Trace was probably where everything, like, a couple of weeks after that is when Christchurch exploded, because that set did get recorded and that tape did make its way around the city, and that's when drum and bass fucking exploded in Christchurch big time.
Yeah.
And you could kind of say at the same time Dunedin popped off as well, you know what I mean? Because it was...
Yeah. Totally, we'd roll down there. Whoosh was down there, Whoosh.
Yeah, Whoosh, Mo, Wizard, and like
Yeah.
those gigs as well. Those guys would all come up. It wasn't too much of a mission for them lot to drive all the way up to Christchurch to come up for a gig. You know what I mean? Like no one was missing out on international if there was a gig going on at the ministry. You know?
Yeah, the ministry was badass, man.
Yeah,
it was so.
Yeah, there was very much pilgrimage mindset. With them lot.
Well, it's so lucky to kind of experience that though, because that was just an exciting time, you know. And just remembering, just even the girls in the scene would just spend a whole couple of weeks designing outfits and shit just for that gig, and it became like kind of this futuristic thing. And
shout out Annika, shout out Missy, shout out Liz, shout out Tali, like shout out the girls, man.
All the crew, they would just they would totally, Jess and Sarah, they would look amazing.
Jess and Sarah, totally.
Yeah, it was so badass. And
I stumbled across, I think last lockdown. Remember when last lockdown I was like just doing like a little. I found some old flyers and stuff like that, and I put them up on socials. And you were like, "Bro, I remember these days. I remember that gig." It was like. Then I found a bunch of photos as well. It's like all the old Christchurch rave bunnies, we used to call them, and just all the boys and just the era and the look from that time and the way we all looked. And it's like, holy shit, fuck, we were young. We were young. Yeah. Like all these kids who are discovering drum and bass now and like fucking living like a drum and bass lifestyle, we were doing that back in the 90s. And fuck, there's not much has changed. I'm not gonna lie. You know what I mean? As far as if you love drum and bass, you love drum and bass, and that's your life. It becomes your life. You become fucking all about every aspect of it. Where I think nowadays the difference is that we didn't have access to the artists or the music that people do these days. So there was a lot more mystique behind everything. Yeah. Whereas now it's kind of like you can download the latest fucking song from the biggest artist in the world like that.
You're right, bro.
That comes
like
out.
Everything's instant now, whereas back then you'd have to wait weeks and months for anything, you know, and
years.
Just that build up. You just build it up and you get so excited and go, oh my God, I can't wait till Goldie's here in the month. Oh my God, you know, and then it'll get there and it'll be like, holy shit, it would just be the most epic night. And so nowadays it's kind of like everything's right there. It's accessible. You don't really have to wait anymore. It's just right there. So there was that mystique about it. You're right. There was this mystique. There was this energy. There was this excitement, anticipation. Yeah, anticipation. Yeah. And you know, I remember seeing some of the first MCs was GQ, Moose, when Moose came out as well.
Yeah, Moose and Brian G.
Oh man, and even remember. Our boy Green, he was MCing for you a lot.
That's right.
That's
right. MC Green.
Yeah.
Okay, Duddy Ranks.
Duddy Ranks, man. And I was like, fuck, I can do this. I'm coming from more of a dub kind of metal rock kind of thing. So I started to muck around on it as well. And then I realized that, I could get into these gigs for free if I became an MC. So so that's kind of like, and my MC name was Rizzler. I was Rizzler back then. And I just have a microphone and just walk around all the clubs and just get myself in for free. And then I'd rinse out the bar tab, sing a little bit, rap a little bit, and then move on.
I don't think it even mattered what style or genre of music it was as well. It was just you and a microphone.
Yeah.
And if there was free piss, you were there.
Free piss. I know, man. It was epic. And so I kind of milked that for a while, and then Pylon started giving me some mixtapes of some shit that was coming in. And I was listening to, you know, like Navigator and of course Fats and everything. Yeah. And then I really started to go, oh, okay, this is the real deal, and started to kind of mimic it, you know what I mean? And then mimic it, and you start getting that, you know, that kind of UK and listen, you know, that kind of stuff, and roll it, inside, you know, oh my gosh, and start to mimic it. Yeah. And then until you kind of find your own style. So yeah, that was. I was definitely coming from a different angle. I was kind of like the sound boy. Often I'd load in the PAs and tune the rigs and be the sound boy for a lot of these raves. So I got to see a lot of stuff there and learn a lot about sound frequencies and drum and bass and how to set up a PA. And then other times I'd jump on the mic and become an MC and host parties and stuff like that. So it was a fucking great time, man. It was really, really cool. It was very fresh.
Wicked. I mean, obviously the Salmonella dub thing was, that was keeping you busy right through. I remember we all went on tour with Digital, Salmonella Dub, Digital Concord Dawn around the country and all that sort of shit. And then, the first time I ever played an international gig was alongside you guys in Concord Dawn and Pylons. We all got flown over to London to play at either Scala or Fabric. I can't remember. Remember Jasper put on those specific gigs?
Yeah.
We all got...
it was Fabric.
It was
I'm
Fabric,
pretty sure it was Fabric.
Yeah. And
that's right.
yeah, there was a lot of
Fucking
a lot of
awesome.
that going on, but by that stage, there hadn't really. I think you hadn't linked up with Concord Dawn by that stage, had you? I think it maybe came after that, and Don't Tell Me came about.
Yeah, I linked up with Concord Dawn. So Don't Tell Me came out in 2003.
That's right.
And so I started kicking with those guys. I emceed for their first Christchurch gig when they came to the ministry. I think that might have been 2001 or 2000. I can't really remember, but so I already knew the boys. I MC for them in Auckland sometime, stuff like that, and I think that was Morning Light had blown up. It was huge for them.
Yeah,
it was going off, and then they asked if I wanted to do a vocal, and they sent me this tune, and it turned into Don't Tell Me, which was
arguably one of the biggest fucking anthems in New Zealand history.
Yeah, it went crazy. It was pretty cool. I remember
it went crazy, bruv. Like there's kids out there who know the lyrics to that tune who are now 30-year-olds. You know what I mean?
Fucking funny. And so that was cool. And then Andy C dropping that and putting it on his Nightlife mix CDs. That was one of those moments where you're like, oh my fucking god, I can't believe it. Yeah, one of those ones. And during that time, Shapeshifter started in '99, and I mixed their first gig in 2000. So all of that whole stuff around that 99, 2000 to 2003, whatever, was just, that was when we all started to work out that we could make something out of this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It was like we kind of did all our, in the mid to late 90s, all that kind of stuff was kind of learning and kind of falling in love with it and just getting hooked. And then after 2000 was like, let's start making this shit and let's start touring around the world and doing it. So.
That was it. I remember the moment that I decided, I was like, you know what, man, like, it's all very well getting promos, doing reviews, playing gigs and all that sort of shit, but you're never going to get anywhere in this scene unless you're making the tunes. And that's, I still feel like that's how it is today, DJs, it's awesome. It's a really great way to build up a passion for music by putting tunes together, but anyone can kind of do it these days. The difference is that not everyone can produce drum and bass. And if you can produce drum and bass, then there's a good chance you can go on to produce any other style of music, because if you've got the sonics down for drum and bass, you've literally got some fucking engineering skills, because it's one of the hardest styles of music to produce.
Oh my god, and especially back in the day when you didn't have the sample packs you do now.
I know, right? Like
trying to make a Reese back in the day was like, what the fuck?
I know. Just the ease of access to production these days is, I still like, I feel like an old man, but when I hear someone make a tune, I'm like, did you engineer that sound yourself, buddy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bah humbug, or pokes his stick. You know what I mean?
And you have the right to do that, Koro.
Well, I think we all do, bro, because it's like, you know what, we were there back in the days when we did have to wait up to 2 years for a tune. We did have to save up thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for just the right piece of kit to make your sound unique. You know what I mean? Like, I talked about it on my podcast when Dillinger put me on to Josh, and I did a sound check with him and at the ministry, and he EQ'd the sound system, and then I sneakily pulled out a CD of mine and Josh's new track and was like, we wanted to test it out, and we were like, can we play it? He was like, yeah, and he listened to it and gave us all this advice, but the one most pivotal piece of advice was, you need this piece of kit right here, this sampler will change everything. And it was completely true, it's like,
the emu.
Whereas nowadays you can, pardon the pun, you can emulate that sound easily just in Contact or Serum, but
but that was it. That was hardware. It was fucking physical hardware shit, and they were big and clunky. And man, it was cool.
It took a lot of work and a lot of know-how, and fuck me. See, it's definitely the 10,000 hour trait when each piece of kit,
We were using the Akai 2000 and all that stuff with Sal Dub.
Yeah,
and that was some crazy shit. I mean, they were it's funny, man. Like if you listen to the album "Carmine of the Drunken Monkey," which is came out in '97, you can hear Sal Dub just tinkering around with drum and bass, like tempos and stuff, and then me trying to mix it, and I had no idea what I was doing. But you listen to it, I listen to it now just for a laugh and go, "Wow, that was fucking trippy, man." I mean, it's '97. It's nearly 30 years ago, that we're
totally
mucking around on this shit. It's pretty cool.
I remember a couple of years later, you guys got Josh and me to remix Bromley East Roller Bulletproof remix for when you guys put out those 12 inches.
Yeah.
And that, like, to us, that was a privilege, like an honor, because it was like, fucking hell, Salmonella Dub, man. Because you guys had blown up. You were like, the early dub reggae roots band that sort of had that electronic touch that fucking everyone loved, you know what I mean? Like, you go to a Sal Dub gig and there was just all cross sections of society there. It was fucking mad. So we were stoked. And then, that came out around that time that we all ended up in London doing those specific shows, which was brilliant.
Yeah, that was rad, man.
It was cool to put a neuro-funky touch on such a dubby sound as well, because rockers, calm down, this is our sound.
I've still got that 12.
Oh, same here, man. Yeah. I'm pretty much sure I've got everything that Josh and I did together and most of the stuff that I put out. But man, like, I do have a lot of regrets. Like a lot of the early DATs and stuff like that of all our early releases, they're gone. There's nothing. There's no wave files left of some of these songs. It's such a sad thing to think about, really. Because
But it was such a you can't, like, nowadays it's bang. It's easy to save shit. Everything's in the cloud or it's on your on your laptop. Boom, boom, boom. Your laptops are so grunty and powerful now, and it's so much more space. But back then it was like, fuck, man. This is shit, man. This is before CDJs, before CDs are just sort of coming out, and it was like people were still playing vinyl mostly. Played 90%. 95% of the time the sets were on vinyl, but then every now and then someone would sneak in a CD, and it was just so much different, and it was so much more expensive to get your hands on that gear, and then to save it as well. Like, you couldn't save the shit. It was like, that's why we lost so much of it. It just disappeared and evaporated.
I remember when we bought the EMU, we had the option to have either 64 or 128 megs of RAM.
It's fucking awesome. Oh my god.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that was like, if you went up to 124, you were in the fucking top tier elite, and you must have had some money bags, you know what I mean?
Oh my god. You remember Logic back in the day? You had the little dongle.
Yes.
Remember that blue dongle that you'd stick in and you carry it around on your key.
I don't actually. I know of it, but Josh was a fucking crack wizard, so he was able to crack anything. And so, for a good chunk of our early career, we never paid for a piece of software; it was all free. So, I didn't mind in that respect. I didn't mind forking out $350 per dub plate. You know what I mean? So, Well, like fast forwarding a few years, you and I ended up linking together. We did. Dark Times, Dark Times, and then State of Mind remix, which popped off big time around the world, and then that was kind of me coming towards the end of my career. But really, for you, it was just a continuation of what you'd been doing. Obviously, you'd done your solo LP. Always on My Mind was one of the biggest Kiwi tunes of all time. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but then we get into like sort of 2008. And where's Tiki at?
I started to muck around more. Well, after the Past, Present, Future album, I dropped that in 2007. And that was like a purging and a coming out of, I left Salmonella Dub. I've been with those guys for 11 years, and I wanted to step out and do my own thing. Still was mixing Shapeshifter. They were still kind of like top priority, and they had picking up around Australia. I think we'd gone to Europe around that time as well, and then also emceeing for Concord Dawn. So I still kind of had my vibes in the drum and bass world and scene, but musically I was experimenting with some other stuff. I think, we did that album. I did that album In the World of Light.
Great album.
And did some stuff with you, Soundtrack to Forever. Yep. That was cool. That was, dubstep was kind of started popping up and making some stuff like that. Yeah, and just emceeing, just being like an MC and doing stuff with State of Mind, Conquer Dawn, Shapeshifter, the Upbeats, Trey.
With the Shapeshifter stuff, do you want to let people know what you do for the boys when they're on the road, and not only that, just in the studio as well?
Yeah. So Shapeshifter, well, basically it's the boys when they first started were an instrumental act, right? So it was like there was no vocalist or anything like that. I think Sam might have yelled down the mic every now and then, and and would ask me just to dub it out, and he'd go, "Rah!" and I'd dub it out and stuff like that. So they kind of were from jazz. They were from jazz school, and they dropped out, and they were huge drum and bass fans. They were going to the raves and stuff, and they were like, let's make this shit live. So they started doing it live, and they had, one of the greatest drummers of all time, Dreadford Grinnell, who is a freak drummer, and he could play anything. The guy was doing amens live, he would learn all these.
Yeah, the dude's a human metronome.
Oh, he was freaky. He would learn the mule, the amen, the tremen, just all these breaks, and he'd just play them live, and it was just unbelievable, his skill set. And so it was really just, it was like showing him off, really. It was like, this drummer is fucking incredible, and the boys would just play all these synth lines and bass lines, and it was all instrumental. So I started mixing that because I knew them beforehand, and they were like, can you come mix us? I was like, absolutely. And I remember the first couple of gigs, I thought there was something pretty special about these guys. And then I was just like, look, they couldn't really pay me too much. So I was like, I'll just do it. Do your sound. I'll be your sound boy. I think what you're doing is awesome. And then Salmonella Dub, we were like, why don't you come on the road with us for New Zealand, and took them over to Australia. And often it would be, the tour would be, Shapeshifter would start. So I'd mix them out front of house, do their sound, and then I'd have to run backstage and put on my guitar and jump up and play with Salmonella Dub, So it was quite a full-on time for me because I was super busy and had my hands on all these different kind of hats on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then so from there, with Shapeshifter, they'll get me involved in albums, so I'd end up dubbing out a lot of their stuff, and they would record all the dub effects I was doing and put them back into the machine and put them back into the songs, and then, just until now, I just finished producing their last record, which was fucking heaps of fun. It was called Rituals, and
it was a huge fucking record.
Yeah, cheers, man. It was all about focusing more on the live element, and
but still in this one as well, I'm noticing like there's very much a couple of nods to the old school, like fucking just the heavy aiming tracks and
the Roxy and stuff.
Yeah, the Roxy is like, I was like, what, that reminds me of some old Goldie. It also reminds me of some old Digital. It just had this metalheadsy kind of sound to it. I was like, there's Tiki definitely having a sprinkling some dust on that bad boy,
Yeah, choice, man. And and Sam as well, he's an amazing producer.
Yeah,
and
his
attention to detail. And
I can't wait to get those boys on this podcast, man.
It'd be awesome, man. Yeah. And so Shapeshifter, they were like this instrumental band for years until P Diggs came along. And P Diggs was emceeing with Sunshine Sound System, and they would often open up and play after Shapeshifter. And so P Diggs would kind of, instead of getting off the mic, he would just roll through, and he'll roll through from the DJ into the band, and he'll toast over the top, all that kind of stuff. And then that's where the relationship started. And sort of P Diggs became, well, actually, no, he didn't become the vocalist then. Like, what happened was, I don't know if I should tell the story. I'll tell the story, fuck it.
Go on.
we're doing a gig in Wellington with Subtronics, with Dog and Sean Deans and everybody, where it's, I think it was Sub 9, or maybe upstairs. No, it was upstairs at studio.
Oh, yeah.
And, often back in those days, you'd play the gig and then you'll catch the 6 a.m. ferry.
Yes.
So we'd play the gig. Yeah. So we'd play the gig and we're loading out. People still on the dance floor, mashed up, and we're loading out the drum kits, everything down the stairs into the van to try and make the ferry. And then, and I think Reno gave Diggs like $600 or something and said, hey, can you pay for the radio advertising? Radioactive, I think it was in Wellington. Yeah, it's Radioactive in Wellington, eh, bro?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's the one. And so, P Diggs was like, yeah, absolutely, man. I'll pay for the advertising, no worries. But of course he didn't. I don't know what he did. Wow, Cookie Monster. So basically, the debt there's the debt. So P Diggs owed Shapeshifter $600 because he didn't pay for the radio advertising,
God.
and he kind of disappeared for months and months and months, and then finally, I think Downtown Brown kind of said, "Hey man, you really need to sort this out." So I think how it came about was like, well, he doesn't have the $600 anymore. So it was like, I think he had to do like 6 gigs to pay it off, and that's how. And then there you go. And then after the 6 gigs, it was like, oh, you want to join the band? And then that's how it happened. Absolutely. And he's gone on to be one of the most inspiring.
I think it's probably the most recognisable voices in New Zealand music.
Absolutely. So uplifting, but just lyrical content and vibe, and what he does with Shapeshifter.
Presence.
He's just the komato, eh? He's just
totally.
He's the man. But make sure you bring that story up.
I will.
With Sam and the boys.
Well, this episode will be out by the time that their one goes to air, so they probably would have heard it by then. So you probably would have heard from him. Bro, I can't believe you told that story. It was $900.
I got a few more stories, but I'll leave it there, man.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of not safe for work stories that we can't tell on this. Obviously, we've all been on the road together many a times over the years, and so that's one of the things that I feel like this podcast needs to shine light on. It's just some of the hijinks and the antics that we all got up to on the road, you know what I mean? Like, just like it was real character building stuff,
Absolutely, yeah, man, good times.
Totally. So, Wits, how's lockdown affected you, man? Obviously, we've been, you say you're still busy and shit, but did you have any plans this time last year that was scuttered or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I was about to. We're about to do a Salmonella Dub Tiki tour of New Zealand. It starts in September, so we're having to move some dates. But that's we've been here before. We've done lots of moving dates. I've done lots of moving things around, postponing, cancelling. The key is just to not get too stressed out about it. There's nothing you can really do. It's out of your control, so you just got to kind of have that mindset of like. Just roll with the wider, and that's how it is. But I'm lucky to have my studio. I've got heaps going on in my studio, man. I'm making music for all sorts of things, like a VR game.
Oh, sick. Mean. You also you soundtracked the 660 movie recently as well,
did
right?
that soundtrack for the 660 movie. Sticky Fingers, did some stuff for them. My stuff that I just did a gig with the Christchurch Symphony Orchestra, so I'm putting that together.
That's right. That's what I wanted to ask as well. Like you and Tali, Christchurch Symphony Orchestra, a bunch of your favourite musicians. Yeah. How the fuck was that?
It was unbelievable, bro. It was unbelievable, especially for me and Tali, because we're kind of talking about it, and I wanted to do a song of hers called Forces, but do the Trade remix, which is a drum and bass remix, and with a full orchestra, and it was just one of those moments where, you're just kind of standing there and I'm looking at her, she's looking at me. It's a sold out 2,000 venue, Christchurch Town Hall, which is a most amazing venue. Got the symphony behind me, the most amazing visual screens that Tim Warp has been doing.
Shout out Tim.
You should interview Tim.
Mate,
you got to interview Tim, man. He was there in the beginning.
Tim is absolutely getting interviewed, bruv. Trust me.
Man, absolutely. Yeah. For those who don't know, Tim Warp, he was the visual guy. He used to do all the, he still does, but he does all the pixels, crunches the pixels.
If you've been to a Shapey's gigs and you've gone, fuck, my molly's kicking in and that graphic looks mint, that's Tim's fault.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that was an amazing time to standing there with Tali and thinking, shit, man, like, 20 years ago or even more, 25 years ago, we'd met through drum and bass.
Yeah.
Me and Tali had met through the love of drum and bass, and now here we are standing 25 years later on stage at the town hall playing drum and bass with a fucking orchestra. It was like, what?
That's some fucking goosebump bucket list shit right there.
Yeah.
Right?
And and with Tali as well, I'm so, of course you got to get her on the podcast.
Mate, she's on. I'm actually recording her on Friday, which is I'm looking forward to.
Man. her story is just incredible,
know.
and what she had to put up with,
especially from the boys back in the day, man. We weren't the nicest bunch of cats. We were drum and bass punks. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of us.
Oh, you guys were. I was cool, bro.
No, you were cool. That was the opposing team, though, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Well, maybe there was a little bit of camaraderie and there was a little bit of rivalry as well. You know, but Tali was always. She was always doing her own thing, and Mo was always doing their. Like, Scientific did their own thing. It's not like they were trying to follow any trends or fuck anyone off or anything. They were just doing their own thing. And Christchurch, like I say, that sometimes there was enough room for everyone. Sometimes it was quite a small little scene, and everyone was trying to sort of plant their flag in the ground. But no, man, Tali, I've always had so much fucking respect for her, and when she reached out to be a part of her documentary, I was stoked because like I felt like I had the right way to put it was that, you know, like. Tali popped off over in the UK, and then cats like myself, Concord Dawn, State of Mind, The Upbeats, we took our cues from how she navigated that scene, you know what I mean? Because it was fucking impossible to break into that scene unless you had someone on the inside, whereas Tali became the inside, you know, of that whole full cycle Bristol sound, which was fucking amazing to watch from a distance, and then to hear her talk about it and hear how fondly everyone reminisces over that when her documentary came out last year was fucking it's so cool. And like, you know, absolutely one of my favorite moments is when she won a music award and actually fucking told the radio and the music industry what the fuck is up with drum and bass and how it's the most prolific sound on the global stage as far as any electronic music that is exported from New Zealand. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's going to be cool getting her on there, bro.
Oh, totally.
Unbelievable. Man.
Well, speaking of like, you know, music and being prolific and all that, man, how do you feel about this whole new generation of artists that are coming through that are just absolutely killing it? We've got like Lee Matthews, we've got Sly Chaos, we've got Floridus, we've got some very, very, very cool acts coming out of New Zealand now, man. Any of them reaching out to you and sort of going, "Hey, bro, can we do something?" Because you are quite a legendary voice, you know. A tune with you usually makes it into the charts, which is always a good start.
And I mean, I've done a thing with Lee Matthews. It's dope. It's a bit more on the grittier, darker side, so I'm stoked for that to come out. Of course, Floridus, started doing some stuff with them in the early days. Young fella called Burnsy's been looking at doing some things with him. I think he's
Burnsy's
got
on the move,
potential.
man. He's
got potential, man. So yeah, man. I mean, the this generation coming through and stuff. It's I'm super stoked, but I'm also like I'm kind of wanting to hear. I kind of want to hear something that's not the same old. You know what I mean?
It's very. There's a lot of pop influence, like, you know, that drum and bass pop sound. That, I mean, obviously, if you want to make it, you want someone like Andy C playing your tunes, and if you want Andy C playing your tunes, you kind of have to make a certain sort of sound. But, like I feel you on that, because a lot of it is sounding kind of similar, right? A lot of it is following a very certain formula.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know that formula works, and it's working for now.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not taking away from it in any way, shape, or form. It's like, if it's working for you, then run with it. But
absolutely. But sometimes for me, for my old head, I kind of shut off to it. Just being honest. I kind of go, I might just, you know, if I'm at a rave and I hear the same kind of thing, I kind of, and especially a lot of syrupy vocals. I get a little bit. I kind of go, okay, what's happening elsewhere? You know? And then I might, you know. But if I hear something where there's like fucking no vocals and it's just some amen shit and just the you know, like I want to hear some more crunchy, kind of like deeper, kind of more tribal, something that kind of punches a little more. Down in that low frequency area, I kind of find things that are a little bit more sort of pitched up and kind of hitting in that frequency that's not down low. I like the low shit, you know what I mean? Down in the low frequency area, the kind of the scary area.
I mean, a lot of that stuff as well, like a lot of the music that's coming out these days, this is just this is my opinion about the music that is getting portrayed as, you know, the sound of drum and bass on the radio. But a lot of it is just literally, it's very it's so easy to make. It's literally like, here's your kick, here's your snare that you've got from your sample packs, here's your bass sound that you got in Serum. Here's, a lot of these kids are really good. It's maybe they've got musical backgrounds and the melodics are great. You can't deny the musicality of the music, but it's just missing that little bit of oomph that all us old heads are looking for. You know what I mean? Like I'm a roller. I like tunes that don't have any vocals. It's a kick, it's a snare, it's a bass line, it's a couple of atmospheric sounds, but everything works in unison together. You know what I mean? Whereas a lot of these big tunes, they're a build up, they're a breakdown, they're a drop, and then they do the same thing over, and it's like, oh, where's the story, where's the journey, and all that sort of shit. But again, that comes from being an old person now.
Absolutely, and these young producers will say, "What the fuck? Who cares what these old fart things?" And it's true. At the end of the day,
a lot of these guys would blow their minds would be blown that we used to make tracks that were 8.5, 9 minutes long. That was how long a drum and bass track was back in the days. It's like a one-sided piece of vinyl that would play for 8 minutes, and you could mix for 4.5 of those 8 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you just do a really just timeless mixing, just really rolling it, and creating that atmosphere. Yeah,
they also those tunes like that also lent themselves to being tracks like MCs like yourself would end up toasting over because there was enough room for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It's the other thing I kind of. I don't do so much MCing these days because when I do it, it's just like vocal tracks.
Hard to get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not that kind of MC that will rap or sing over something that's already got vocals in it. I might do little bits here and there, but usually I'll just kind of, okay, what do I do here? And I'll sort of go to the DJ, I'll go, okay, is there any songs you're going to play that don't have vocals? And they'll go, oh, yeah, coming up. Okay, great, awesome. And then they'll mix out of it so fucking quickly that you just maybe get a few bars in, But it's changed for me as well. That's why I don't really do so much MCing now. Maybe I do it for the upbeats, Trey, but these days I kind of just tend to step back more now as an MC and that's probably the reason, actually. I never really think about that, bro. You just put that in my head. I'm like, yeah, that's probably the reason. Because sometimes it's like, you just want to hear no vocals for something. You just want to hear, bask in the glory of the reese, of the bass line, of just blast, and imagine what a vocal line would be. And then that's the art. For me, and people like me and Tali, when we're deep in the mix and it's like there's no vocals and there's just this intensity, then we have to think of a melody and we have to think of a message and we have to pull it out of the bag on the spot. And Tali's the best at it, hands down. Probably one of the world's best at it.
I've seen both of you guys. Like when you guys are on stage together, there's this energy that I've not seen amongst many MCs, and it's like what each other's going to say next. It's hard to describe, but it's like watching fucking poetry in motion without sounding cheesy. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's so much fun. Yeah.
Bro, like, obviously, possibly there could be an MC out there listening who's budding, who's like, you know what, I really want to fucking do this. There's, what would be your one bit of advice for an MC that's sort of thinking about coming through drum and bass in New Zealand in this day and age?
Don't go up to other MCs and go, can I have a go? That's my number one fucking advice. Or don't go up and go, I'm an MC, can I have a go? Don't fucking do that, man. Just don't.
That's, to be honest, that's always been the way, though, isn't it?
The amount of times, or like, how people hold up their phones now and there's a fucking message on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
That one. But the amount of times I've had, some young guns just going, go, go. And I was like, oh, man. And often I'll go, okay, rap in my ear, give me something. And if it's worth it, then I go, okay, you've got this next track. I'll go to the DJ and go, hey. And often the DJ will be like, nah. Or they go, okay. So give them a little go. But that's the number one thing is like, look, like just enjoy the music and learn and listen. And you might be in the audience and you go, I can do better than that guy or that girl. Just soak it up and learn from that and go and work out why you can do better and not have to get on the mic and blaze it and show off all the time. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things you've got to, I don't want to sound like an old fart, but I'm going to say you got to pay your dues with it. And you've got to do the work, and you've got to find your place, and you'll get there eventually, but you can't jump the queue. That's how it is. It's like you've got to put in the yards, you've got to put in the hard work, you've got to pay your dues, it's not about your skills on the mic, it's also about your personality off the mic, and it's your attitude off the mic. And I've seen a lot of MCs come and go because they've had shit attitudes. They come in like a house on fire and blazing, but they're full of ego and full of, just bullshit attitude, and they create a drama in the scene, and the next thing you know, they've disappeared, So it's all about just that. Just be mindful, and if you love this stuff, then you're going to be in it for the rest of your life. So what's the rush?
It's true. It is fucking true. I mean, I've never fallen out of love of drum and bass. I fell out of love of producing it, but the sound itself, I fucking loved it from day dot, and it's been a huge part of my life, shaped who I am, and yourself as well, bro. So that's why I have to say fucking massive thank you for coming on, man, because it's good to have the people there at the start sort of involved from the start, So thanks so much, brother. And
no worries, brother. It's been awesome talking to you.
You too, bro, and reminiscing, and I'm sure we'll catch up in IRL and fucking the future, and Lady COVID will
what's going to You know what's going to happen though, bro? Like, as soon as we stop this podcast, I'm just going to get a flood of memories that'll be like, fuck, I should have said that. I should have said that.
Totally. But the thing is, because there's always more time, right? This is an ongoing podcast. And
all good.
Nice
all good.
one,
Thanks,
brother. Cheers,
Look
bro.
Look after yourself. Big up. Cha-cha.
You too, and take care.
Peace.
You've been listening to the History of New Zealand Drum and Bass series. For episode schedules and podcast information, follow us at NZ Dn'B Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, with new episodes weekly on all major podcasting platforms. This is the History of New Zealand Drum and Bass.